One of the things that has recently shaped my life has been a ministry that was started by a man in the church that I pastor. He's actually been on the program. His name is Wayne. And Wayne leads a ministry downtown in the city of St. Catharines to homeless people and people that are involved in the sex trade. Probably he feeds and clothes somewhere between 12 to 13,000 people a year. Being down there and being with those people has been a transformational point. How they got there, we could always ask. And it's very easy to point the finger and say, you need to get out of that situation. But I believe that's the wrong approach. What we do need to understand is what we're called to do as God's people, to help people climb out of the miry clay that the psalmist talked about. When I look at the people, I say that's someone's son or daughter. They're real people. They have a real story. And I discovered that as you get to know them, they want to talk to you. They're truly looking for a friend. Today, we're going to be talking about the subject. It's an ugly subject. It's called sex trafficking. But it's a story, it's a subject with a story of people coming from darkness to light, of being transformed. Someone's son or someone's daughter is being redeemed. And here to talk to us today is Casandra Diamond. She is the founder and spokesperson for an organization called Bridgenorth. Just love that title, Bridgenorth. And she's going to talk to us about her own story and the amazing work that is happening here in Canada and the realities that many of us as Canadians have chosen to ignore. You're not going to want to miss a moment of the program today. And let me begin by welcoming Casandra to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been looking forward to having you here, and I've also been filled with trepidation because I know what you're going to share is going to rip my heart apart. But let's move ahead, and thank you for being here.
It is my privilege to be here, Mike. Thank you for hosting me.
Why don't you take a moment and just tell us, first of all, what is Bridgenorth? And then secondly, what is sex trafficking? Explain it, just at an entry level path for us, and then maybe tell a bit of your story. So first, what is Bridgenorth?
Bridgenorth is an organization that exists in York Region, Ontario. We have bricks and mortar where individuals that are at risk of being exploited and trafficked, or those who are being exploited and trafficked, where they can come for care, comfort, um, planning, solutions, and really just love to be cared for. Bridgenorth is an organization that does three things all day. That's advocacy, public education and awareness, and direct service.
Okay, that was clear and succinct. Thank you. That just sounds like a breath of fresh air. What is sex trafficking? Because we hear the word, but I'm not sure everybody fully understands.
I'm convinced that there's a lot of myths still being perpetuated and believed here in Canada and in Ontario, where we're sitting. Some of those myths are that victims of sex trafficking come from other places, maybe by plane or other countries, and then they come to Canada and are being sold. That does happen, but that's not what I'm talking about, and that's not what we see the majority of here in Canada. 93% of victims of sex trafficking are Canadian. And so we know that those being victimized are being victimized by a crime. Here in Canada, it is illegal to buy sex. Now, Bridgenorth, we work with children, young people under the age of 17. And so we're suggesting and we're telling you that in Canada, it's illegal to buy sex from anybody, but it is very illegal to buy sex from children, those
Hmm.
under 18. And there are penalties that protect these children.
But is that one of the more desirable age brackets to buy sex from by predators?
The average age of entry is only 13 years of age.
Wow.
And that is the average age of entry within the last year at Bridgenorth. We've had phone calls for as young as 9-year-olds, including 10 and 11-year-olds. We have 4 calls last year.
Uh, I don't even know what to say. That's just heart-wrenching to hear. I run into these things when I've been in other countries, third world countries, and it's appalling whether, and I don't need to list the countries, we're just talking about Canada, but you're saying
Mhm.
that is where we're at. And when you talk about 13, it just rings a bell because my oldest granddaughter turned 13 this past week. And I just, we know where our minds can go with those terrible thoughts. I want to immediately jump to the solution, but I think it's too premature. So let's just talk a little more. Share with me what you're comfortable with about your own story and how God has brought you through. I want to hear the story of redemption, how he's brought you through to a place of strength where you're at today.
Well, happy birthday to your granddaughter recently. But I wanted to say that no 13-year-old should be experiencing what we're talking about. I was 17 when I would find myself um, in the sex industry. Actually, it was a female that had shared with me the so-called opportunity. And here I thought, because of many vulnerabilities in my life, many past experiences, that were mainly violent and real hardships to face as a young person alone. And that these are kind of what drew me and also had me involved in the life. So I'd meet somebody who would make me feel like I was safe or protected, loved. At the same time, they were deceiving me, they were lying to me, and they had always had plans that were not what that were to exploit me. They were never telling me the truth. And so in this situation, which many youth find themselves in, I realized that it wasn't actually my fault and
Yeah.
that being there was a crime being committed against me.
So when you realize you weren't being told the truth, how have you had to unpack that now that you're in a place of healing and wholeness? Where does the word trust factor in, and what do you advise people?
Well, trust is a big word. It's a very big word. And for myself, my learning of trust and my ability to do that, it really came through my faith. So I mentioned being in the life a moment ago, Mike, and for 10 years I was being exploited and trafficked in and around St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Scarborough, Toronto, all of these areas, a lot of Southern Ontario towns and places. But throughout my life, I always knew that there was something up there, something bigger than me. And when I was able to exit, 3 days later, I would meet this man named Jesus. And I would ask him, to really to to actually kill me is what I asked him. I said, "Kill me now or save me, but whatever you do, you have to do it right now because I can't keep living like this. I don't have hope. I don't have a future. I didn't have any background in education. I didn't have friends at this point in time, even just a friend.
Wow.
I had fake friends. It was my identity was stolen in the sense where um, the benefit, because if there's ever a benefit of being trafficked, which I'm not sure,
Mm.
but that is the same thing every traffic victim has to go through. And that is they have to determine who they are. They have to come to decide what is their purpose, their meaning, what is their destiny, why were they born? And these are the questions I needed to answer, and I found the answers actually in the Bible. I was reading through it, and it is my faith that has brought Bridgenorth to this point. It is my faith that has brought any accolades towards me and our organization, any good works that have been done. It was because one day, 3 days after September 11th, 2004, I would turn my heart to the Lord, and my life would be forever changed.
Wow. Cassandra, we have lots more questions, and I just so appreciate your transparency and sharing some of your story. and how you got to the place that you're at today. Because as I see in working with people, everybody has a story, and it's so easy to point the finger of judgment. But I just want to do a shout out right now that if you know somebody who is caught in the sex trade, there is a Canadian human trafficking hotline. And that number is 833-900-1010. 833-900-1010. I'm going to be back in just a moment with Casandra as we unpack more about this amazing organization called Bridgenorth. Hey, friends, I want to help you in this journey called life. And one of the ways we do that is by partnering with you through our monthly devotional. And this resource is designed to help you walk through the Bible, to reflect on its application, to engage in prayer, and have something meaningful to ponder each day. And it becomes the substance of what I teach from each day on the perspective. And we'll cover an entire month at a time in each devotional booklet. If you'd like to receive your own copy, simply visit our website at theperspective.tv/devo, and we'll make sure it reaches you in time. We also deeply appreciate your prayers and ministry gifts, which help us continue offering this devotional each month. Welcome back to The Perspective, and my name is Mike, as you know that, but I'm here today with Casandra Diamond, and it's a heavy subject, and we're gonna go even a little deeper in the subject in just a moment, but I want to say that there is a number that you can call our prayer line. If you want to talk to somebody, if you need prayer, it's 855-910-6297. And I invite you to call that at any time today. We don't want you to be alone. And then we have a human trafficking hotline number that we're going to share as well periodically. Casandra, during the break, I asked you, was there a point when someone pivotal was there just to help you, to give you the tug to lift you up? And you said no. Take us to that point and how God has brought you to the point where you're at today.
When I was a young girl, Mike, growing up, I was born in Scarborough, Ontario, actually. And there was a woman when I had had a two-parent family long ago. And there was a woman who actually became a tenant in our household. She was 18 years old and I was 2. And she would stay with us for most of my life, my childhood life. And when I had gotten out of the life, meaning being sex trafficked, the tenant of my family home, she took me in. I became her tenant, but she took me in and she gave me food, a place to go, love and belonging. But she taught me and her husband about Jesus. She herself, throughout her life, turned to Christianity as a faith. And when I saw and witnessed the changes in their life, that's how I met this man, Jesus.
Wow. But then you went through this whole dark period that you've described. And how did you come out of that? Was it like an instantaneous decision, or was it like pulling a shoe out of the mud that took some time?
Sounds like you're listening to my prayer life. I think God may describe me that way. However, I would say that um, it was miraculous in the sense that I had nowhere to go outside of this home that had taken me in a long time ago. There were no supports at the time. There was no 1-800 or 833 numbers to call. There were no organizations like Bridgenorth to assist people that were in the situation I was in. You know, there were very few resources outside of police at the time that could help. And the woman, she took me back in, her and her husband, and remembering how they had come to know Jesus and their faith. When I left the life, 3 days later, I woke up and I crawled up to the living room where nobody was, and I opened the Bible.
Wow.
I had opened it before, and every time I opened it to Ecclesiastes, vanity of vanities, life is meaningless. Well, finally, the same third time, I opened it and I said, "This time, God, I'm not going to take that from you." I said, "Actually, I know you are who you say you are. I know that you are God's son, and I know that you save. So I am telling you, I have nothing. I have no education. I have not even a friend on this earth, not a real friend. I had no money, nothing, except for this place I was staying in, this basement apartment with the previous past tenant that the Lord had put in my life." And that's when I came to Psalm 102. And I dropped to my knees and I prayed, "Jesus," I said, "you have to kill me right now, but you need to kill me or you need to save me. But whatever you do, you have to do it right now because I can't even breathe." Being inside of my skin was just not, it was just too much. I needed the prayer line you talked about.
Wow. I don't know. I'm wrecked just listening. And, but I'm filled with hope because I believe that God has his church and he's raising up men and women. And I'm going to choose in faith to believe right now, Cassandra, that as you're sharing your story, God is going to move in people's hearts to say, we're going to do something. I know that my mind is spinning right now with even what my own personal responsibility is. But take a few moments, take a few minutes and talk to us about Bridgenorth, what happens, how we can help you, how we can support what you're doing.
Bridgenorth is an organization that I founded. This organization specializes in one thing and one thing only, and that is to assist young persons under 17, mainly age 12 to 17, to help them to exit the sex industry or to divert them away from it. Bridge North does three things all day, like I was mentioning. That's advocacy, public education and awareness, and direct service. Well, public education and awareness are things that we're doing like right now, but they also lead to much bigger solutions. PPM 166 is the protocol. It's out of the Ministry of Education. PPM 166 is a protocol that all district school boards in Ontario must follow. It's a mandatory duty to report for suspected and disclosed cases of human trafficking.
Wow.
When I had when I had created this with Nancy Gymnopoulos and Donna Liberté from York Region District School Board, I knew that young people outside of their families were found in the education system and that we needed to have trained eyes to protect and take care of youth in school settings and to report if something's happening to that child. You know, we also talk to parents about learning more about the apps that youth use, and we also talk to young people about talking to their parents about the apps that youth use. Right? Have that conversation and be knowledgeable. We want parents to know that we believe in the family and that if you can have open and honest conversations with the people in your families that you love about how they live online, that you're going to be helping young people across the board.
Yeah. You know, we have February 22nd is the main awareness day. It seems like does it work? Does it help? Or is there more that can be done to make the country aware of this deplorable situation?
You said it a moment ago, and I will not let that comment slide. And it was that you're responsible for yourself. That's what you said, Mike, and I agree with that. I'm responsible for myself. At the end of the day, it is a supply and demand market. And so what I mean by that is that if there wasn't a demand for paid sex, then there wouldn't be a supply of these victims. So it's on each and every person to become aware of this crime that can happen here in Canada of human trafficking and sexual exploitation of children, youth, and adults for that matter, boys and girl children, right? This happens to all genders. And I also just wanted to say that when it comes to um, equipping and resourcing youth and parents, go to our website. That's bridgenorth.org. There are resources
Okay.
there, for example, how to talk to youth, and other resources. For example, if a youth feels like they're in danger or they need help, they can contact us too.
Fantastic. I'm going to take another 30 seconds. Our time's gone. Final words. What would you say to people watching right now? Maybe they know somebody that's being sex trafficked, or maybe it's someone who is being right now. Speak a word of hope to them, Cassandra.
There is, that's just it. Hope. Hopelessness is sometimes the reason why I didn't get out of the life, is because I didn't think that I would have a future or that I would become anyone or anything. And in fact, I started to believe the lies that my trafficker was telling me. And that's not my fault. The point is that he was wrong. He
Yeah.
lied. And I wanted to let you know there's a great life outside of being exploited, and that it's possible for everybody and anybody listening.
Wow. Cassandra, thank you for being with us today. I want you to come back whenever you want to. You've got an open door here. Thank you so much. And we're grateful. And people, as you're watching, you see the helpline numbers that have been going up. I'm going to be back in just a moment to conclude the program and to share from God's word. Thank you. Have you ever been maligned or falsely condemned? If you have, you know how difficult it is. Speaking from experience, I know how painful it is as well. When people spin a story about you that is not true, and you feel like there's no one there to defend you. We learn today from the life of the Apostle Paul how he handled false accusations when things were spoken to him, maligned his character, and just distorted his intention because other people had an agenda. They wanted to put him down to lift themselves up. I want to read today from the book of Acts chapter 24, verse 1, and then I'm going to jump through the passage. I invite you to listen in. 5 days later, the high priest Ananias went down to Caesarea with some elders and a lawyer named Tertullus, and they brought charges against Paul before the governor. We found this man to be a troublemaker, stirring up riots among the Jews all over the world. He is a ringleader of the Nazarene sect and even tried to desecrate the temple. So we seized him. And by examining him yourself, you're able to learn the truth about all these charges we're bringing against him. And other Jews joined in the accusation. First of all, everything they said was a lie. But now they got the governor's ear. And when the governor then motioned for Paul to speak, he replied, Paul said, I know for a number of years you've been judge over this nation, so I gladly make my defense. And they cannot prove to you the charges they are now making against me. Paul is speaking confidently, but he doesn't know if the words are going to settle or not, but he has trusted himself to the Lord. And he said, however, I admit that I do worship the God of our ancestors as a follower of the way, which they call a sect. He says that we worship the same God. And he said, I believe everything that is in accordance with the law and that is written in the prophets. I hold on to the Old Testament. And I have the same hope in God as these men themselves have, that there will be a resurrection, both of the resurrection and the wicked. So I strive to keep my conscience clear before God and man. Notice how Paul, even when he's on trial, he wants to come back to the hope, and it's the resurrection. He uses his words carefully to say to the governor, I'm actually in alignment with these men that are accusing me of things that are not true. Can you identify with Paul? Have you been wrongly accused? Do you know what it's like to be maligned and condemned for things that you've never done? It's a feeling that leaves you gutted and defenseless. And that's because it's a feeling and not a fact. A good question, no, maybe it's a great question to ask is, how was it that Paul stayed together emotionally? I mean, it would be understandable to think that the man was just curled up in the fetal position, just lamenting the situation. Paul pressed on because he was secure in his calling. I'm not saying there won't be days when it's going to be hard for you to press on,
There were days when it was hard for me to drag myself out of bed, but I knew what God had called me to do, and I knew that people didn't want me to preach the gospel. People didn't, here in Canada, they didn't want me to share his word, and many of these were people who actually claimed to be followers of Jesus. That was heartbreaking. Paul is being accused by religious leaders as well. And so what do we learn from this? Well, first and foremost, I realize that we have to listen to the criticism, but you don't have to absorb it. And there have been many times I've said, God, just protect me so that it becomes like water off a duck's back. And keep coming back to the key truths. And what is the key truth that Paul mentions? It's the resurrection from the dead, the hope that we have in Jesus. And friends, how you process negative comments and words that malign you when they are not true. Oh, if they are true, you need to own it and apologize. But when they're not true, find strength in your relationship with God, that he loves you and he will walk with you through to the end. Stay true to him.
Will you donate 2 hours of your time? Crossroads Prayer Center is seeking people with a heart willing to join in the amazing work God is doing through prayer. Providing over 1,300 prayer interactions daily, Crossroads Prayer Partners speak biblical truth and words of life over people's need. Join in God's transforming work through prayer and enrich your faith. Learn more at crossroads.ca/prayervolunteer.
There's so much to process today as we talk from God's word, and we've been hearing the journey of the early church, how Jesus is building his church, even in the midst of the pain and brokenness of the people in the times of the apostles, but also in the times of the people of Canada right now. And we've been listening to Casandra share heartbreaking stories, and yet stories of redemption, what God is able to do. And to close the program today, I want to take you to the book of Psalms, chapter 40. I want to read these words as we conclude the program. Psalm 40, verses 1-3. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he turned to me and he heard my cry. And he lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. And he's put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. God's called you and I to be his lights in the midst of darkness. Go forth in his power and in that calling.